My wife and I got married in 1994. About 2 months ago, I discovered she's been having a physical affair with a friend for 6 months. We're both in our mid to late 40s, not in bad shape, and have a grown son. I haven't been happy in this marriage for about 15 years. She had an affair in 2005. We went to counseling, and I felt responsible for her choices. Now, I'm relieved and ready for a divorce without feeling like the bad guy. She's given me the reason I needed for 15 years to escape this fake marriage. I believe I've been a good husband, not perfect, but I haven't deserved this treatment. I've gathered evidence for a divorce, but haven't confronted her yet. I plan to expose her to friends and family to protect my reputation. In the past 2 months, I've collected the evidence needed for the divorce. I haven't confronted her or initiated the legal process yet. I want to eventually inform our families and the other guy's wife to protect my reputation, but I have some questions. 1. Should I wait until after the divorce is final to inform our families and the other guy's wife? I'm concerned that if I expose it now, it might reach her employer, and I don't want her to lose her job since I live in a state where alimony is mandatory and she earns more. If she loses her job, I'll be financially responsible. 2. How should I tell my son? He was 6 when she cheated the first time, and he saw the impact on us. He may be upset with her, but I don't see a reason to lie to him. 3. Should I ask her to move out, or should we try to maintain an amicable living arrangement until the divorce is final? I want to keep the house, and my divorce petition mentions buying out her share of the equity. 4. I want to start dating again soon. Has anyone been in a situation where they lived with their spouse, but dated other people during a divorce? Or is it better to wait? The affair partner is someone we both know well, and my wife is in a position of financial authority in her company. The affair partner is an electrician, and I work as a structural engineer, doing consulting work for my wife's company. I know many of the project managers and executives there, and if they were to find out through gossip that she and this guy were involved and that's what ended our marriage, it could create problems for her. However, my intention isn't to harm her reputation or finances. I just want to avoid being seen as the bad guy, especially because both our families are Baptists and they might pressure me not to divorce her. In our religion, it's often seen as the husband's fault if his wife cheats, and I'm building a case against that perception. Back when her first affair happened, she didn't have her degree and earned much less than me. She got her MBA in 2011, after our supposed reconciliation, and quickly landed a great job with the construction company, almost matching my income. Now, she's a company officer making $50,000 more than me annually. If I had divorced her back then, my son's lifestyle would have been less comfortable. Staying together allowed him to attend a good school and receive a great education. I don't regret staying in the marriage because my son turned out wonderfully. I'm not sure things would be as positive if we had split back then. Honestly, until I discovered this second affair, I still liked her as a companion. We got along well, shared similar interests, and enjoyed each other's company. But I had fallen out of love with her over the years since her first affair. When I found out about this second affair, I was more mystified than sad. I thought, again, is she that foolish? I'm frustrated that someone I thought had matured and gained wisdom showed me, once more, how thoughtless and shallow she can be. But does she deserve to lose her career over it? As long as she doesn't interfere with me or damage my reputation, I don't feel the need to jeopardize her job. Her father adheres to certain beliefs, so when she cheated the first time, I was told it was my duty as a Christian husband to forgive her. I was advised to pray, read the Bible, and figure out where I failed as her spiritual leader while she wasn't really encouraged to work on herself. It was one-sided, and I've grown distant from the church since then, becoming more independently minded in my Christian beliefs. I want to apologize if it seems like I'm grouping all Baptists and evangelical churches together under this doctrine. That's not my intention. I know not all organizations follow this doctrine, but many influential ones do. Currently, I'm determined to proceed with the divorce, and I won't let our families, her dad, or anyone from our church convince me otherwise. Mother's Day at church with my unfaithful wife, having to put on a facade all day, became increasingly challenging. I began feeling frustrated, especially after the church potluck. I asked myself, why am I doing this, and couldn't find a good answer. I withdrew and kept to myself. It was the first time I had felt anger since learning about her affair, but I did my best to hold it in. Eventually, I found refuge in the kitchen, wearing an apron and helping with dishes and cleaning, anything to distance myself from my wife and her insincere friends and family. I've developed a strong dislike for this church and my in-laws, even though they may not deserve it. Some people sensed my mood and asked if I was okay. I play bass in our church's praise team, and even the music director noticed I wasn't myself. My father-in-law approached me, inquiring if something was wrong, and I just put on a fake smile and said, "No." I wanted to ask him how he and his devout wife raised such a troubled daughter, but I kept that thought to myself. I spent the rest of the day and evening keeping to myself while my wife watched Netflix. At one point, she tried to initiate intimacy, and I told her I wasn't feeling well. She got upset and walked away. It's been 2 months since we've had sex, and she's frustrated with me. Well, she can deal with it. I'm pretty sure she spent the rest of the evening texting the other man, and I can only imagine what she's saying about me. I cannot wait until this afternoon when I get to see my lawyer and provide him with the remainder of the documents he needs to put together the divorce petition. I have a lot of questions for him. I cannot wait to get this divorce over and done so I can move on with my life and put this cheating woman behind me for good. So, I spent 3 hours in my attorney's office yesterday getting the info drafted into a petition. My attorney recommends that I go for half equity on the house and lifetime alimony from her. He says we need to ask high, and then we can haggle down to a reasonable agreement she and I can both live with. He's not sure about me waiving alimony for her share of the house proceeds. He is concerned that property values could tank before we sold it, and then I would be screwed. I offered to not touch her retirement, and she is not to touch mine. I am a self-employed engineer and I work out of my house. Half of the downstairs is essentially my office. I have 4 computers and a huge workspace where I apply my trade. My wife has most of the upstairs. In fact, I am thinking of just splitting the house while we are awaiting finalization of the divorce. She can have the upstairs all to herself, and I will move all my belongings downstairs and sleep in the guest bedroom. Our house is actually well suited to an in-house separation. My lawyer explicitly told me not to leave. She may well have something up her sleeve. She may very well choose not to stop seeing this guy and continue to step out on me. That is okay. I will be okay with it because I have pretty much disconnected from her emotionally. I cried all my tears out years ago. What I am looking forward to is dating new women and having some real passionate sex for the first time in 15 years. But I won't do that until the divorce is final and we have sold the house and gone our separate ways. I will not tolerate interference from her parents this time. They have no ground to stand on because outwardly I have been a model husband to my wife. Then again, they are very old and they don't have much fight in them. Her dad retired from preaching and heading the church about 3 years ago and is now just the assistant pastor and a deacon. I will most likely quit this church even though the music director will beg me not to. So, I guess I might come across as a weak, angry person seeking revenge on my wife. It seems like there are many seriously upset people on that subreddit. Since I believe I wouldn't receive a fair assessment on that sub, I feel the need to defend myself to some extent. First, I've never tried to present myself as a perfect husband. To be honest, I'm not even sure what that means in today's standards. I can say that throughout my marriage, I've always strived to respect and support my wife, even during times when she didn't deserve it. Her first affair happened when I thought we had a great relationship. We seemed happy, had a fulfilling sex life. I was financially supporting her through college, and our young son was a joy. She decided she was missing something and had a year-long affair with a fellow student at her university who happened to be a mutual friend of ours. He helped her secure grants and loans, and those supposed evening study group sessions were actually her visiting his apartment for intimate encounters. If a mutual friend hadn't caught her getting cozy with him at a dimly lit bar one night, I would have been completely unaware. I was furious. I had invested in her education and taken on extra responsibilities at home to give her time for school. Why? Because I wanted her to succeed and have a fulfilling career. Does that make me weak? Does it make me the bad guy? She couldn't provide a good reason for cheating. It was all apologies and emotional pleas. I was young and hurt, and I fell for it. She claimed to be happy in our marriage, but admitted that she was drawn to his flirtation and the excitement of being desired by another man. That's all it was, lust. I asked her to leave, and I planned for a divorce. She went to live with her parents and visited our son for a few hours in the evening. Her father didn't want word to spread that his daughter had cheated, so he arranged some sort of intervention. When it first happened, only our parents knew about it. Then one day, I received a call from the head deacon at my father-in-law's church, where we used to attend. They requested an emergency meeting, and I found myself in a room with deacons and trustees, essentially a star chamber. They began quoting Bible verses, urging me to forgive her completely and work on reconciliation. In essence, this meant I had to scrutinize my own spiritual leadership in the marriage and pinpoint where I failed to lead her properly. Explaining this to those not raised in the evangelical tradition is challenging, but this false doctrine has deeply influenced Southern Baptist theology over the past 50 years, and it still persists in some cases. I was young, deeply in love with my wife, and desperate to save my family and marriage. Fearful, I went along with it, swallowed my pride, and did what I believed I should do. That's the simple reason I didn't leave the marriage 15 years ago. We attended counseling, where I shouldered much of the blame for our issues, trying to fix myself. I can't speak for her counseling sessions, as I wasn't present for those. These were Christian counselors endorsed by the convention. I embraced all the teachings of Promise Keepers and immersed myself in their beliefs. But inside, I was slowly deteriorating, though I couldn't see it at the time. As the years passed, something inside me was fading. We still had a fulfilling Essex life, and I treated her as I thought a husband should. I did everything right, or so I thought, until about 2 months ago when I discovered she was at it again. That's when I realized it was all a facade, a big lie. She never truly showed remorse or genuine repentance for her actions. It was all an act from my perspective. So, we both share some blame. We both put on an act, pretending to be this perfect couple when, in reality, we were hollow inside. I'm somewhat alarmed by my own detachment. I'm aware that my wife is actively involved in a soul and emotional affair with a longtime friend of ours. Most husbands might be furious and want to confront the other guy. I know they meet up regularly, possibly even daily. I suspect this because she no longer shows any soul interest in me, nor is she affectionate. To be fair, I haven't been affectionate towards her either. So, honestly, I just don't care anymore. Right now, I'm waiting until Friday. I spoke with my lawyer a little while ago, and we discussed some last-minute additions to the petition. He anticipates having it ready by next Tuesday, and then it'll take 3 days for service. If all goes as planned, she should be served next Friday. One thing that's been bothering me is that when I tell my wife about my future plans and inform her parents, I'll also have to resign from my church roles. I'm both a musician and essentially a construction manager for a church building addition project I've been overseeing for over a year. I handle communication between the church, the architect, and the general contractor. I approve payments, review contracts, deal with change orders, and manage the financial aspects. While I'd like to continue, I'm uncertain if the church leadership will allow me to continue in this capacity if they learn about my divorce plans. I'm not an ordained minister, but I hold a significant role in this project, so it's something I'll have to navigate. Cheaters often don't realize the ripple effect of their actions. Part of me hopes my wife faces consequences for what she's done. I've had enough of this woman. Yesterday, she called to say she had to work late, which is not surprising. However, this time she didn't return home until almost midnight. I heard her shower, slip into bed, and fall asleep. When I woke up at 6:30, she was already dressed and gone. I suspect she left early to avoid facing me this morning. I'm done with her. I believe deep down she knows it too. Change of plans, I called my wife, put on a cheerful act, and insisted she meet me at a quiet cafe we both like this evening at 6 o'clock. We haven't been on a date for over 3 months. It's a small, well-known place, and we're familiar with the owners and staff. I want to have this conversation in a public setting with people around. It's not that I'm afraid of false accusations. I just want this to be brief, and she's less likely to prolong it with witnesses present. I'll probably have a cup of coffee, break the news to her, and leave. I don't really care what she does afterward. I won't be rude. I can't be certain if this is just a fling or an exit affair. What I can say is that the texts between her and the other man were incredibly critical and demeaning towards me. She talks about how I'm lacking in bed, how I'm nerdy and unrefined. how I have a dad bod, and how much sirey and more assertive he is. It's all very disheartening. So, if she truly feels that way about me, if I'm as inadequate as she claims, then she should be relieved to be rid of me. I plan to let her know I read all the texts up until a month ago and stopped when it became clear how much she despises me. The only positives she mentioned about me are that I'm a good dad and handy around the house. So, 2 out of 100 checkboxes, right? Update. So, I waited at the cafe for her, and it was quite crowded, just as I had hoped. She, predictably, arrived about 45 minutes late, looking flustered and clearly not in a good mood. I'm sure she would have preferred to be with her boyfriend or anywhere else. We exchanged the usual marital daily debrief, the same format we've followed for the past 2 decades. When the waitress came, she ordered her usual, and I simply asked for a coffee refill. Asachi, why didn't you order something to eat? Me, because I don't plan on being here much longer. Her expression turned incredulous. Her, what's wrong? Look, I'm sorry I'm late, but you know how things get at the office. Me, I want you to listen and not interrupt what I'm going to tell you. I know you've been having an affair with her for some time now. I've known for 2 months. I've seen a lawyer, and he will serve you with divorce papers next week. I'd like to do it somewhere outside of your office to spare you any embarrassment or problems. So, when he tells me it's ready, I'll text you with the service location and time. She sat there for a moment, then a shudder passed through her, and she took a deep breath before resting her head in her hands. Her. Oh God. Me no, don't bring him into it. This has nothing to do with God. We dragged God through this the last time you did this, and I won't do it again. Her. Please let me explain. Me no, I'm not here for that. I don't want that. Look, I probably know as much about your affair as you'd ever be willing to admit to me. I have months of dates and evidence. I don't want to know your reasons or justifications. I just want both of us to find some peace. Neither of us has been in a real marriage for 15 years. We've been going in circles, and I know you're not happy and haven't been for a long time. I'm just tired. I'm tired of this marriage, and I want it to end so I can move on with my life and find some peace. Tears streamed down her face, and she sat back with her arms crossed, gazing off into the distance. Her. I'm sorry. Me look, this needs to end. I don't want apologies. Apologies are meaningless now. I just want a fair and equitable divorce. I want you to get a lawyer to review the petition when you receive it. I'm not trying to push you around, I don't intend to publicly embarrass you. I want this to go smoothly, and I don't want us to fight. Right now, I feel nothing towards you or this marriage. Please don't do anything to make me hate you. She sat there quietly crying for a while. Her, what about us? Me, I will call him. I'll tell him I'm divorcing you because of infidelity. I won't badmouth you or get into any details, but I won't lie to him either, He'll want to know why. He's an adult, and he can handle it. It will be up to you to mend any rifts between you and him. She nodded, and we just sat there in silence for a long while. After a few moments, she looked at me with deep emotions in her eyes, a glimmer of love still present amid the mess of emotions. By this point, she couldn't stop crying. That's when I decided it was time to leave. I told her I would be away for the weekend to give us both some space. After calling our son, I planned to turn off my phone. I explained that our parents needed to know, and she could tell her parents while I'd inform mine. I assured her that I had no intention of exposing her affair to anyone beyond our immediate families. She nodded in agreement, and I held her hand for a long while. She gripped my fingers tightly, almost making me wince. I was surprised at how deeply saddened she appeared. Then, I simply said goodbye, got up, and left. I had a backpack and drove to a hotel on the coast, where I stayed through the night. While driving, I called my son, and surprisingly, he took the news better than I expected. He mentioned that he had sensed something was amiss with me over the past few weeks, and suspected it had to do with his mom. Then he dropped the bombshell. He asked if she had cheated on me again. I replied yes. What do you mean, again? It turned out he knew about his mom's first affair, which he found out from his aunt who had accidentally revealed it to him about 3 years ago. He had been carrying that burden silently, and it infuriated me. I was doing well until he shared that revelation. So, I spent Friday night stewing over it. So, that's the story. We still haven't told her parents. Mine know as of last night. My mom's response was good riddance, which didn't surprise me much, because my mom had sided with me the first time this happened after playing nice for all those years. My dad has Alzheimer's, so he spends his days talking to his deceased brother Ed, and none of this registers with him. This is me. I can't pinpoint the exact moment when I stopped loving her. I do remember a day about 4 years ago when I saw her fall and land on her tailbone. Before that, I would have rushed to her aid and carried her back into the house. But that time, I just walked over, helped her to her feet, and let her limp back into the house on her own. I had run out of change for her, plain and simple. I won't attempt to understand what's going on in her head. Right now, she's probably at work, wondering if I'm turning her world upside down and how much damage control she needs to do. Our son is already upset with her. As for the material things, she's a successful woman with a fancy car, stylish clothes, and a healthy savings account. I was just a fixture in her life. She'll move on quickly. As for the other betrayed spouse, not yet. I believe she cares about me like one would a brother. We were still intimate until a few months ago, right before the affair escalated. That's when it all fell apart. Actually, our soul life was never an issue. We were passionate in bed, and she never complained. I always satisfied her. The real problem was her constant need for attention and the possibility that she lost respect for me when she started earning more than me. Women keep score, and for her, money meant power. She thought she held all the cards in the relationship, and I've just shown her she doesn't. I don't feel great about keeping the OBS in the dark. It's not my first choice. But my lawyer wants me to play it safe and not reveal anything to anyone outside of the family. So, I'll stick with his advice. I don't know the laws in this state, but I want the divorce agreement finalized before making any moves. Given our small town, I suspect the word will get out eventually. My mother-in-law, the gossip queen, won't keep her mouth shut. She'll blab, and it will spread. Last night, my wife came home around 8 p.m. I had already been to the gym, showered, and made a shake when she approached me in the kitchen. She asked if we could talk, and I went into 180 mode and agreed to listen. She looked exhausted and worn out, just like I felt. She said she had ended things with the other man and wanted to come clean with me, allowing me to ask anything. I inquired if the other man's wife knew about the affair, and she thought not. Then she asked if I planned to tell her, and I replied, "No, I don't intend to." She thanked me, but I reminded her it was her responsibility to inform the OBS, not mine. She didn't like that response, but I didn't push it. We talked briefly about our son and her parents. She asked if I had told my parents, and I confirmed that I had mentioned we were getting a divorce, but hadn't provided specifics, only that she had repeated what she did 15 years ago. At that point, she teared up, gazed at her feet, and mumbled, "I'm such a screw-up." I maintained my stance and said, "Well, I'm heading to my office. Good night." That was the end of our conversation. So, as of now, she hasn't informed her parents. I'm unsure whether I should press her to do so or just stay out of it. They are her parents, and I'd rather not get involved on that side of things. Update. The meeting with the head pastor and trustees was quite interesting. The pastor asked why I was pursuing a divorce, and I explained that I couldn't disclose the details, but my wife's actions had made our marriage unsustainable. I expressed regret at having to step down. One of the trustees present was an older gentleman who had been a deacon during my wife's first affair. He nodded at me with a sad but understanding look, aware of what was happening, but choosing not to comment. As expected, the issue of me holding office in the church came up, and I acknowledged that. However, I proposed an alternative. I would no longer serve as the construction manager as a church member, but they could keep me on as an independent consultant. This arrangement wouldn't violate the convention's rules. My fee, $1, to be paid in full at the final city inspection. We shook hands on it, and as we were leaving, the pastor asked if there was anything he could do to dissuade me from the divorce. I politely declined, and he didn't push further. He's actually a decent guy. So, I'll continue working behind the scenes to ensure the construction project stays on schedule and budget. Once that's completed, I'll cut ties with the church for good. I just heard from my lawyer that the divorce petition is ready to sign. I'll head over this afternoon to sign it and meet with him while his notary is available. Then, off to the gym. It's hard to express how I feel. It's like I've been covered in a heavy woolen blanket for the past 15 years, and suddenly, that blanket has been pulled away. I can breathe and feel the world around me for the first time in what seems like forever. I have no desire to speculate about my wife, the other man, or whether the OBS knows anything. I'm keeping my head down and pushing forward through the storm. I won't concern myself with that drama. My wife will make her choices, and I no longer care to track her movements, which is why I come and go through the back of my office to avoid her as much as possible. I completely avoided her last night and this morning. After returning from the lawyer's office and the gym, I had a lengthy conversation with my son. I shared more about the backstory of the first affair and what I knew about the current one. He's decided to stay put for the summer, get a job, and not come home, which I think is a healthy choice for him. It seems he's quite disgusted with his mother. Later on, my son called me, crying. He asked why I didn't divorce his mother the first time she cheated. I was taken aback, needing a moment to compose myself. I essentially explained what I had shared with you all, under pressure from his grandfather and the church community. I chose to rug sweep her affair and stayed with her. Then he told me I should have been stronger and not given in so easily. He expressed disappointment in me and vowed never to let anyone treat him that way. He was angry, crying harder, and abruptly hung up on me.